My name is Isadora. I am 35 years old, and for a long time I was the perfect wife. At least, that's what everyone said, and what I tried so hard to be. I lived to please, to keep the house spotless, the food hot, and a smile on my face, even on days when my world was falling apart inside. Leonardo and I met in college. He was the kind of man who walked into a room and made sure he was noticed. Charismatic, funny, ambitious. I was the opposite, discreet, focused, rational. Maybe it was that contrast that brought us together in the beginning. Or maybe I just wanted someone to take me out of my quiet, predictable world. We got married after 5 years together. It seemed like the logical step. Everyone said we were perfect for each other. I loved him, yes, but I also loved the idea of finally building something of my own, having a solid family, different from what I had experienced as a child. And for a while, it seemed like it was going to work. Leonardo got a great job in marketing, and I left my position at an agency to take care of a small pottery studio I had always dreamed of setting up. My sister, Bianca, came to visit me often. She was younger, impulsive, beautiful like those actresses on soap operas. She always had a seductive way about her, as if the world were a stage and she were the star. She said she admired me, that she wanted to be like me. I believed her. Like a good older sister, I let her stay at our house for days, helped her out with money when she needed it, listened to her love troubles. I never suspected anything. I never wanted to suspect anything, but the truth is that the betrayal began long before I saw it with my own eyes. It started with small gestures, in the looks that lasted half a second longer, in the silences when I entered the room, in the way Leonardo laughed at her jokes, those jokes he said he hated. I realized everything in silence, because sometimes knowing is more painful than not knowing, and because I had a secret that would change everything. They thought they were fooling me, that I was just that distracted woman, busy with her vases and paints, oblivious to what was happening right under my nose. But what Leonardo didn't know, what Bianca could never have imagined, was that I was already preparing my own game. It all started with small cracks in the routine. Leonardo started coming home late from work, always with excuses involving last-minute meetings or difficult clients. Bianca, on the other hand, seemed to have rediscovered her interest in me. She showed up more than usual, made excuses to sleep at our house, said she needed some time away from the chaos. That particular night, I pretended to be sick. I said I had a bad migraine and went to bed early, claiming I couldn't stand noise or light. They were downstairs watching a movie, or at least that's what they said. I closed my bedroom door, I turned off the lights, and I waited. My heart was beating irregularly, as if it already knew what was coming. I don't know how long I stayed like that, in the dark, until I heard light, furtive footsteps, as if they knew they were doing something wrong, but did it anyway. I opened the bedroom door carefully. I crept down the hallway to the top of the stairs. I saw shadows on the couch, 2 bodies entwined, and then the kiss, long, hungry, without regret. My world didn't fall apart, not this time. I just went back to my room. I grabbed my phone and activated the hidden camera I had installed days earlier, strategically positioned to capture the living room sofa. I already knew what I was going to find, but I needed the images. I needed proof. The next morning, I made breakfast as I always did. Toast for Leonardo, green tea for Bianca. No one seemed guilty. No one acted differently. They thought I didn't know, that they were in control, that I was the weak link in this game. But what they didn't know was that early that morning I had already sent the images to my secure cloud account. And more than that, I had sent copies to my lawyer. The worst was yet to come. A few days later, Leonardo had the audacity to call me for a serious talk. He sat down with me on the porch and said he felt that our marriage was cooling off, that maybe it was time to think about new paths. He used pretty words to wrap up his cowardice. He made it seem like he was concerned about me. I almost felt sorry for him. Bianca came in shortly after, pretending to be surprised, pretending to be supportive, pretending everything. They really thought I was going to cry, that I was going to beg, that I was going to humiliate myself. But at that moment, I just thought silently, "You've chosen the wrong side of the story." What they didn't know was that my fall was already over. Now it was their turn. After that conversation, that theater of falsehood where Leonardo pretended to be hurt and Bianca played the role of the understanding sister, everything changed inside me. On the outside, I continued with the same routine for a few days, but inside, I was a wreck. Their betrayal wasn't just marital, it was existential. It made me doubt everything. My intuition, my self-worth, my history. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted the two people who hurt me the most? My nights became a parade of insomnia and dark thoughts. I would wake up in the middle of the night with my heart racing and tears on my face, trying to understand at what point in my life I lost control of the narrative. And the worst part? The masks remained. Bianca still came to my house as if nothing had happened. Leonardo still slept by my side, as if the conversation we had had was just a lapse. They were trying to pave the way for an amicable separation, and I knew why. Leonardo knew about my inheritance. He knew about my family's land that was about to be sold and how much it would be worth. He didn't want to leave my life, not yet. He wanted to leave at the right time, rich, and with Bianca in the passenger seat. That's when I realized I couldn't just react. I needed to plan. But before that, I needed to disappear for a while. In the eyes of the world, I became more subdued. I stopped going to the studio. I stopped posting on social media. I turned down invitations from friends. I became a ghost in my own life. In fact, I was gathering strength. Reading, researching, planning, discovering who I was without them. I found out that Leonardo had done this before with another woman, a previous relationship that he swore had been toxic, but the court records said otherwise. And Bianca? She had already been involved with a best friend's boyfriend years earlier. It was a pattern. I wasn't the exception. I was just the target of the moment. My savings were safe. My intelligence was intact. And my pain, channeled. It was in that moment of darkness that I understood. There is no weapon more powerful than a woman who has been betrayed and has time to think. I picked myself up in silence. I cut my hair. I started running in the morning, before they woke up. I changed my diet. I got a new cell phone. And I created a new email address with a fake name. That's how I started making the first moves that would change everything. They thought they were dealing with the same Isadora. But they didn't know that that woman had died on the day of the stolen kiss on the couch. The woman who was reborn was someone else. Cold, strategic, lethal. The most dangerous person isn't the one who screams in pain. It's the one who learns to keep quiet and watch until they strike. The first thing I needed was time. Time to study their moves, understand their patterns, and anticipate their every move. And for that, I had to keep up the act. Inside our house, I was the same Isadora as always. Kind, friendly, slightly subdued. Pretending to be a wounded and passive woman was my disguise. And it worked. Leonardo relaxed. Bianca felt increasingly secure, more at ease. They began to let their guard down. Once she even left his room wearing his t-shirt at 7 in the morning, thinking I was still asleep. I looked, smiled, and went back to my room. They didn't know that. That same week, I had already started the process of transferring my assets to a personal holding company in my maiden name, something Leonardo would never have access to in a divorce. I also started recording conversations, collecting evidence, scanning documents, and even secretly recording their messages. I was putting together a dossier, but that was just the surface. What bothered me most wasn't the fact that I was being betrayed. It was the arrogance. The way they treated me like a fool, like someone disposable, as if my pain was worthless. And that gave me the boldest idea I've ever had. They wouldn't just lose what they were trying to take from me, they would also lose themselves. I enrolled in an intensive digital entrepreneurship course under a false name. I started building a network of contacts. I reinvented myself virtually. No one knew I was the same woman who, weeks earlier, had been crying while hugging her knees. I did everything in silence. I invested part of my savings in advertising, tools, and a new project, a website aimed at helping women who were victims of betrayal and emotional abuse to get back on their feet. It was anonymous, but powerful. And the most interesting thing? It started to attract attention. Media, influencers, and invitations to speak. Meanwhile, I continued to reap the rewards of my efforts. Leonardo began to share with me details of what he was thinking about the divorce. He said he wanted something civilized, that he didn't want to hurt me. He even said that when it was all over, we could be friends. I smiled. I said I understood, that I also wanted peace. Bianca, on the other hand, started treating me condescendingly, with that pitying look, as if she were winning some secret competition. Little did she know that, at the end of the game, there would be no prize. At that stage, the hardest thing was to keep my balance. Sometimes I wanted to scream, to spill everything, to show that I knew every detail, every touch, every message exchanged in secret. But I knew that anger ruins plans, and I wanted them to fall because of their own confidence. That's when I discovered something that changed everything. In Leonardo's email, which he never changed the password to, there was a hidden folder with suspicious documents, contracts, transfers, emails with someone named Claudio, who seemed to be a shady lawyer. I found out that Leonardo was trying to transfer part of an investment we had made together to his name, without my consent. It was theft, and with the evidence I had gathered, it was a crime. That was the fuel I needed. It was no longer just about betrayal. It was about destruction. That same week, I made an appointment with my trusted lawyer. I took the evidence with me. I told him everything. He looked at me as if he couldn't believe that this well-dressed woman with a firm voice and steely eyes was the same cheated wife everyone knew. "Do you want to sue?" he asked. I replied with a smile. "No, not yet. First, I want him to think he's won. You don't destroy an enemy by tearing down his castle. First, you quietly dig the ground beneath him, till he sinks with everything he's built." With everything I had gathered, evidence, records, copies of emails, and suspicious transactions, I already had enough to destroy Leonardo in court. But that would be quick and noisy. I wanted something more, educational. I wanted him to feel every crack appearing under his feet. And when everything came crashing down, I wanted him to know that I was the one who planted every stake in that rotten foundation. I started with the finances. Discreetly, I removed my name from joint accounts. I informed the banks, blocked my digital access, and replaced all my cards. I changed my electronic signature. I made sure that every trace of his dependence on me disappeared. What's more, I changed the lease on the property where we lived, which was in my name, adding a clause stating that in the event of separation, the property must be vacated within 30 days. I was the owner. Leonardo was just a companion. But he didn't know that yet. Meanwhile, I intensified my work on the digital project. My website, now renamed Invisible Renaissance, was featured on a women's rights blog. I started getting invited to roundtable discussions, even by support groups for women entrepreneurs. Still anonymously, of course. But my support network was growing, and with it, my strength. On the day Bianca accidentally left her cell phone unlocked on the table, and I saw a message saying, "He's going to ask for a divorce this week," I almost laughed. They were right. The divorce was coming. But not as they expected. That night, I arranged dinner at home. I said I wanted to talk. I made a special dish, opened a bottle of wine. I put on some music. I made it seem like I was willing to listen, to understand. Leonardo arrived confident. He sat down at the table like a diplomat about to conduct a peaceful agreement. Bianca, of course, showed up shortly after, with that look of someone who just happened to be passing by. While we were eating, he said he didn't want to continue, that he was unhappy, confused, that he wanted to find himself again. I listened. I ate. I drank. Silently. In the end, he asked me what I thought. And that's when I looked him in the eyes and said, "It's okay. I support your decision. I just ask that you sign this paper first." I handed him an envelope. Inside was the dossier I had put together, illegal contracts, emails, proof of adultery, and the draft of a separation agreement where he gave up any rights to my assets, under penalty of legal action. He turned pale. Bianca's eyes widened. She tried to protest, but I got up from the table and said, "Sign it, or the copies will go to the press, and to the public prosecutor's office." They said nothing. The look of confidence drained from both their faces like makeup in the rain. Leonardo signed. Bianca left without looking back, but that was only the beginning. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I requested that they vacate the property within 30 days. And discreetly, I scheduled the interview that would change everything. A famous podcast about betrayed women and the power of personal reconstruction invited me to tell my story, without names, but with all the pain and truth I carried. It aired a week later. It went viral. Thousands of women wrote to me. Some recognized the patterns, others felt inspired, but the best part was seeing their reaction. Leonardo started getting strange looks at work. Bianca lost sponsorships and partnerships on social media. Her image as a self-care influencer didn't survive when rumors started circulating. And all this without me having to name names. In the first few days after dinner, Leonardo tried to keep up appearances. He continued to go to work with his blazer neatly pressed, smiling at his colleagues as if nothing had happened. But the looks began to change. Comments that had previously been accompanied by respect now came in whispers. Because when the podcast went viral, even without names, some people connected the dots. The betrayed wife, the manipulative husband, the sister involved. The story hit Bianca's social media circles like a bomb, and it didn't take long for her identity to be linked to it. Bianca's social media, once full of messages of support, turned into a minefield. Followers demanded a statement. Other women reported similar stories involving her or close friends. Her image, carefully crafted over the years as a kind of self-love muse, imploded. Leonardo, on the other hand, faced more practical consequences. His name appeared linked to irregular financial transactions, the ones I discovered in the emails. With my authorization, my lawyer filed a formal complaint with the public prosecutor's office, under seal. We knew it wouldn't be long before he was called in for questioning. That's when he called me, for the first time since signing the agreement. His voice was broken, not from crying, but from fear. Isadora, what have you done? I took a deep breath. On the other end of the line, I could hear him breathing heavily. I waited a few seconds and replied, I just gave you back what you gave me, Leonardo, but in a more elegant way. He tried to turn it around. He said he was sorry, that it had all been a mistake, that Bianca had manipulated him, and finally the classic line, I still love you. I almost laughed, but I was brutally honest. Me too. But now I love myself more. I hung up. Bianca tried to defend herself on social media. She posted videos crying, saying she was being persecuted by jealous people. But no one believed her. The public is quick to idealize, and even quicker to condemn. That same week, Leonardo was suspended from his position indefinitely, according to the company. The investigation was ongoing, and the evidence we provided was solid. I didn't have to lift a finger. That's when the messages came. From Bianca, apologizing, saying it was a mistake, that she missed her sister. From Leonardo, saying he wanted to meet up, talk, without hard feelings. I deleted both. On the surface, my life was calmer than ever, but inside, I still felt the echoes of that pain, no longer as a wound, but as a scar. And every scar has a story. One night, I opened my laptop and went to the website I had created. Thousands of women were now following me. They shared their stories. They sought help. And I was the invisible face of this revolution. For the first time in years, I felt something different when I looked in the mirror. Pride for not just surviving, but for turning my pain into a weapon, for fighting without screaming, for winning without losing myself. Leonardo and Bianca were reaping the rewards of what they had sown, and I was about to reap something much greater. The invitation to the in-person lecture arrived in an elegant email, signed by one of the largest organizations supporting women entrepreneurs in the country. They wanted me, the anonymous founder of the Renacenza Invisível project, to be the special guest at their national event in São Paulo. They wanted me to break my anonymity, to give a face to the force behind it all. I thought about it for days. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the woman who had saved me, and I understood. It was time. I said yes. The event was announced on all of the institution's digital channels. When my name appeared, many connected the dots. And that included Leonardo and Bianca. The day before the event, I received a message that caused a twinge in my chest. It was from Bianca. Please don't do this. You've already won. I can't take it anymore. I didn't reply, because it wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth, about justice, and about giving back to the world what had been taken from me. On the morning of the event, I got dressed calmly, an elegant, discreet red dress, the same shade of anger I had carried for months, but now converted into a symbol of strength. I stepped onto the stage with steady hands, but my heart was pounding. The audience fell silent when I began. Good evening. My name is Isadora Moreira, and this is my story. For almost an hour, I told everything. No sensationalism, no names, but with every detail, every twist and turn of the pain and reconstruction. I talked about the marriage, the betrayal, the manipulation, the theft, about how I reinvented myself and how, when I was told I was too weak to go on alone, I took my first step. People gave me a standing ovation. The video of the talk was posted the next day, and in less than 48 hours, it had already racked up 1.2 million views. With it came invitations for interviews, articles, columns in magazines. I became a reference, an inspiration to many. But above all, a threat to those who underestimated me. You destroyed my life. I hope you're satisfied. I replied for the first time, it wasn't me. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you. As for Bianca, I heard that she started therapy, that she stayed away from social media, and that she told a mutual friend that she will never be the same after her sister. She's right. None of us are. The following week, I received a subpoena. Leonardo was being sued for contract fraud and embezzlement. The evidence I provided as a witness was crucial. The public prosecutor's office accepted the complaint, and the investigation moved quickly. His name was removed from the company's list of partners. His assets were frozen, and he was ordered to pay compensation to the state. He was ruined, and alone. The same loneliness he believed he had thrown at me when he betrayed me now embraced him every day. On the last night of that month, I walked through my new apartment. It was small, but it was mine. The walls were bare, with no pictures yet, but there was peace there. For the first time in years, I could sleep without fear, without surveillance, without pain. I sat on the sofa with a cup of hot tea in my hand. I turned on the TV, which happened to be showing a report about women who had turned trauma into social projects. And there I was. At the end of the story, the journalist asked, Isadora, what would you say to someone who is going through what you went through? I thought for a moment and said, never underestimate a woman in silence, because while you're deceiving her, she's learning how to win. The weeks following the lecture were like watching an avalanche in slow motion, not of my life, but of theirs. Leonardo, who once boasted about the control he had over everything and everyone, was now just a name mentioned in court cases, discreet headlines, and indignant comments on social media. He tried to appeal the investigation. He tried to prove that the financial transactions had been an administrative error. But the emails I saved, the scanned documents, and the statements I obtained were too much evidence. My lawyer handled everything with surgical precision. And the judges were quick to see the pattern: fraud, attempted concealment of assets, and use of an individual, me, as a shield to benefit from someone else's assets. Leonardo had his bank account frozen. His car was repossessed. The company he worked for issued a public statement saying it repudiated any act of dishonesty. He lost everything, and with him, the image of a refined, educated, and successful man that he had worked so hard to cultivate. In a last-ditch attempt at self-pity, he posted a message on LinkedIn saying that he was going through a period of reflection and that he had learned from his mistakes. Comments such as shameless, disguised sexist, and "it took you this long to figure it out" flooded the post. He deleted his account a week later. Bianca? She tried to return to social media as well. She even posted videos of recipes, spirituality, and even tarot readings, but nothing stuck. Her image was tarnished. She was now seen as the symbol of everything women don't want as a friend or sister. Brands terminated their contracts with her. Her followers evaporated. And according to a mutual friend who didn't know we were still talking, she cried every day. She said she had anxiety attacks, that she lived in fear of what would come next. I didn't wish either of them ill. I only wanted them to feel the truth, to taste with their own skin the taste of manipulation, betrayal, and lies. And they did. The most ironic thing was that sometime later, Leonardo tried to contact my father, whom he rarely called, to say that he was sorry and that he still loved the family. My father replied with a single sentence: "The only family you loved was the lie you built inside our home." The inheritance from the sale of my family's land, the one Leonardo wanted so badly to share with me, finally came through. And everything, absolutely everything, was in my name. With part of the money, I expanded the Renacenza Invisible project. I hired psychologists, lawyers, and created a free platform to help women in situations of emotional and financial dependence. We started serving hundreds of women a month. At the inauguration of the new headquarters, small but symbolic, a group of women who had been following my story showed up with flowers. One of them hugged me and said, "You don't know it, but you saved me." At that moment, I understood something that brought a lump to my throat. My revenge wasn't just mine. It was collective. It was an act of justice not only against Leonardo and Bianca, but against everything that makes us believe we should accept less than we deserve. I didn't want to punish them forever. I just wanted them to know, and never forget, who the woman was that they tried to destroy. That night, I watched the sunset from the terrace of the new headquarters, alone. A glass of wine in my hands. The red sky was like a symbol of rebirth. For the first time, I felt no pain, no desire for revenge, just with the certainty that I had won, not over them, but over myself. If someone had told me 2 years ago that I would be here, living alone, emotionally and financially independent, and above all, free inside, I would have laughed, or cried, maybe both. Because at that time, all I could feel was the weight of betrayal, as if my identity had been emptied, swallowed up by lies that weren't even mine. Today, when I look back, I no longer feel anger. I feel amazement, not for them, Leonardo and Bianca, but for myself, for everything I endured in silence, for all the days I was invisible in my own home, trying to maintain a peace that didn't exist, sustaining bonds that drained me. But I needed to go through that. I needed to be betrayed to learn how to protect myself. I needed to be silenced to learn how to speak. I needed to lose my footing to build my own foundation. Today, my name is on contracts, lectures, social projects, and opinion columns. But more important than all that, my name means something to me again. Isadora, the woman who picked herself up, who refused to be discarded, who turned her pain into strength for others. As for Leonardo, I heard he moved to the countryside. He's working in something temporary. He no longer supports the lifestyle that once made him feel important. Bianca also left the spotlight. She went back to school, they say. I honestly hope she's looking for something real, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that living off appearances is a prison sentence disguised as freedom. One day I found an old photo of us in a closet, me, Leonardo, and Bianca, smiling at a family party. For a second, I thought about tearing it up, but I decided to keep it. Because even the pain is part of our history, and ignoring that would be like tearing pages out of a book that taught me how to survive. I haven't remarried, not yet, but I've learned to love better, and most importantly, to love myself first. I receive messages every day from women who say that my story inspired them to leave toxic relationships, to believe in themselves, to start over. And in some way, that fulfills me more than any romantic relationship ever could. In my living room, there is a framed quote that says, "It's not revenge, it's justice in the form of a new beginning." Because yes, there was revenge, but more than punishment, I wanted liberation, for myself, and perhaps in doing so, I liberated many others. Today, I walk calmly, I speak firmly, and I live without haste. If I could leave one last message, it would be this: never underestimate those who betray you in silence, because in that silence they may be planting their own freedom and digging your grave. And that's what I did. They betrayed me. They discarded me. They laughed behind my back. But what they didn't know was that I was already being reborn.